Yeah, my name is Daniel Carlino. I'm running for city council because I know that we need urgent action to stop this housing crisis in Missoula and to do everything we can to stop the climate crisis and make sure Montana does not invest further into fossil fuel energy and infrastructure. Um, I studied environmental studies and wildlife biology at the university here, and that's what got me into action as a climate activist and environmental activist in our community. I started a climate action student group at the university and another one in town that's also a social justice advocacy group. And through my time as an activist, I've realized that our politics are often not matching what everyday working people and everyday Missoulians are asking for. Last year, there was a huge movement for social justice and for the Black Lives Matter movement in Missoula. And we saw protests at the courthouse and around town every single day for months, asking for change, asking for our government to step up and do what our BIPOC community and people who are experiencing homelessness in our community are asking for, to really create a truly safe community. And we didn't see all of what they were asking for happen. We were asking for jail diversion programs, major investments in housing, fully funding things like the mobile health crisis response team, and so on and so forth. Right now, our city is covered in smoke, and we can expect this to happen year after year, worse and worse, if we don't take drastic action to stop the climate crisis. On Missoula City Council, I plan to do everything that it takes to address our climate crisis, our criminal justice crisis, and reforming that, and everything that it takes to ensure everybody has access to affordable, secure housing in Missoula. I believe that housing is a human right, and I believe that our policies need to start matching up to that statement. I believe that all basic needs for people like housing, water, food, shelter, utilities, for example, breathable air and clean water should be guaranteed as human rights in this country. So I'm fighting to make sure that all Missoulians have their basic needs met, and to ensure that we do right by our neighbors who are homeless in our community, and do right by our future generations by truly stopping the climate crisis before we hit these major climate tipping points. If you believe those things are
15 seconds.
Thanks. Yeah, if you believe those things are human rights and you believe that we need to do more and take on these issues urgently, I strongly encourage you to support my candidacy for city council. And please look at the specific policies I'm putting forward on the campaign website, danielcarlino.com. And I'll be happy to get to more of the specifics later on in this forum. Thanks for having me. Well, first, I think we need to make sure that we're following what our community wants. And before voting on things, I'd like to always have feedback and dialogue with people in our community, and especially those that would live in the neighborhood or would be most affected by the voting decision that would be made. With every decision, I'm going to be working to make sure that we're promoting social justice and equity in our community, along with making sure that we are making these decisions in an environmentally sound and way, and that follow climate and social justice with every decision. So I'd like to increase the dialogue between constituents and our city council members. For example, by whenever people go up to public comment, there needs to be a system where people can write down their contact info and and then one of their city council representatives would get back to them every single time. That seems like a simple solution. And also creating more citizen oversight committees and giving more power to those committees to make the final decisions on things, to try and diversify the political power. But yeah, that pretty much answers it. And I just really think that the dialogue between city council members and our community members could be much better And I believe in a budget, and I believe in voting on things that reflect what our community is asking for, especially those that are marginalized and most vulnerable in our community. So I'll be putting that at the forefront of every decision that City Council makes. Thanks. I think there's a lot more that we could do to address these issues in our community. Domestic violence is the #1 cause of homelessness for women in our country, and we need to have resources and proper funding to ensure that that we can reduce the harm and make sure that all survivors have access to the resources that they need to get out of their situation with housing. I believe in fully funding transitional housing for sexual assault survivors, like the new YWCA shelter. And when it comes to our TIF funds, I know that new YWCA shelter that has a domestic violence unit there only got about $100,000 or so in TIF funds, and I'd like to make sure that things like the Marriott hotels renovations got close to $2 million, and I'd like to make sure that when we're talking about TIF and where that these nonprofit companies and groups that are trying to open up buildings or shelters for survivors of sexual assault or domestic violence know that the city will help fund those through renovations with TIF or through our general budget with the resources and creating new crisis response teams that are experts and have quality training in domestic violence and sexual assault. With resources like that, then we can take on this issue with more urgency and with the proper funding that we need. So I'm not satisfied. I'd like to see a lot more funding and support go towards these issues, especially with making sure that people are able to have housing that can get away from
15 seconds
or sexual assault. And I'd like to keep bringing more awareness on this issue and listen to our community for the proper solutions and resources. So thank you. Well, my main priorities is to try and keep Missoula affordable for all of us, working to stop the climate crisis, and working to reform our criminal justice system. But if I could only pass one, with the climate crisis front and center, of smoke filling our lungs, the lungs of people we love, and we can taste it if you're outside. It's very bad, and I'd hate to see future generations to bear the worst burden of this. So if I could pass one city ordinance, we need to change our energy efficiency policies to make sure that we are not allowing fracked gas heating on new building developments, because if we're allowing gas heating going into the 2020s and 2030s, we're going to be reliant on fossil fuel heating way past when we hit these major climate tipping points. And along with that, we'd have to upgrade our energy efficiency standards on buildings as well. So I'm trying to take on the climate crisis, and we need bold action. And that means not building new fossil fuel infrastructure on buildings in Missoula during the time of a climate crisis. So electrifying all future buildings and increasing the energy efficiency standards. Thanks. We all know Missoula is a really special place, having the rivers and mountains surrounding us and the lively community. But Missoula is changing. And if you want to preserve the culture and character of Missoula, we need to make sure that it stays affordable for everyday working class Missoulians. As the only renter in the race, I think that we really need representation for renters on the city council, or more representation on there. So I'm running to help bring urgent and bold solutions to our housing crisis and to our climate crisis before it's too late and we lose sight of the Missoula that we've all come to love. So I hope I can count on your vote in this endorsement process. And, I've knocked every door in the district.
15 seconds.
And I'm going to keep talking to Missoulians and doing the hard work to make sure that we do right to achieve social justice and climate and environmental justice in Missoula. So thank you.